I could start maybe. Dear colleagues, let me warmly welcome you to our webinar focused on issues of strategic development of flexible forms of teaching. We are implementing the webinar within the framework of the project called Distance Education as a Tool for the Development of Universities, in which 25 Czech universities are participating. As part of the project, we have carried out analysis of the background of individual universities for the implementation of distance education and blended learning. And now we are beginning to create strategic documents in the form of action plans. Just before the preparation of these plans, today's meeting is very important for us. We hope to be inspired by the views of more experienced colleagues and get an idea of how universities in Europe are considering higher education strategies in the field of distance education. I'm very pleased that we are implementing this seminar in cooperation with the European Association of Distance Teaching Universities, EADTU, of which the Czech Republic has been a member since 1993 through the Czech Associations of Distance Teaching Universities, ČADUF. I would like to thank the manager of EADTU, George Ubachs, not only for arranging contact with all of the speakers for our webinar today, but especially for many years of work for the distance education in Europe, inspiring projects and publications from which we can draw very valuable know-how for many years to come. We truly appreciate this cooperation. I would also like to thank the other lecturers of our current webinar, Director of Research and Innovation at International Telematic University, Uninettuno, Alessandro Caforio from Italy, and Senior Lecturer at the Expertise Center for Education and Professional Development of the Open Universiteit, Iwan Wopereis from Netherlands. I am grateful to them for taking the time to see us, and they are willing to share their experiences and opinions with us. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of the participants of the webinar who have joined us from all corners of the Czech Republic, as well as then the team from University of West Bohemia who took on the organizational role. I hope that this morning will be pleasant as well as professionally very beneficial for everyone. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Okay, thank you for introduction. And maybe if now George Ubachs and Victor can together share the presentation and start with the first lecture.
Thanks. Thanks so much. Yeah,
thank you.
I see the slides on the screen. Yeah, there was some hiccup in really actually using the slide share myself, sharing the slides on the screen myself. So we do it like this. And just to indicate who I am, I'm George Ubachs. I'm the Managing Director of EADTU. As indicated by Lucy, the European network of online open and flexible universities of the leading universities per country. And I would like to introduce to you some of our work of the past year, especially in relation to COVID and responses by our membership in relation to the challenges coming forward from the COVID crisis. And next slide, please. First of all, there were some studies done last year immediately when the first lockdowns appeared in Europe, and I'll share some of these figures with you. So the European Commission did already in May 2020, it was quite early in the COVID crisis, the first inventory, and it seemed that already 95% of the universities needed to shift to online and distance learning at that point. So emergency remote teaching. And later on, after the summer, when some students and universities opened again for part of the student numbers, they got a combination of students being on campus, some students being at home, following lessons online. And then soon in October, November, all the lockdowns were back again, and all teaching needed to go back into fully online. That, of course, had, as a consequence, had as a result, had an extreme workload for the teaching staff to adapt and come with new approaches and keep the studies going, the offerings going, mostly by copying what was happening on campus in an online mode, so video conferencing setting. That was very much appreciated. The students it was all new then, and it was very much appreciated. But after a few months, already students felt like they didn't get the full study experience and the full support that they normally would get in an on-campus situation. So students were getting kind of dissatisfied about this, and I think rightly so. Next slide, please. You saw that here, for example, in Amsterdam, you had protests of depressed students. Next. And indicating even that they were asking for quality education. So next slide, please. Students were against online education. Well, this was only from October, it's 1 year ago. Next slide. What that meant is that emergency remote teaching, on the one hand, putting this in perspective, what would universities have done without online education or video conferencing? We couldn't reach to the students in any other form at that moment. Of course, all higher education institutions were challenged, had to improvise, but also it was showing the digital illiteracy, the need for expertise on digital education within our institutions. And that was a kind of a wake-up call that we really need to adapt and change in that sense. Next slide. There was also a study by the Joint Research Center in Seville from the European Commission. They captured the result, the consequences in two key challenges for policymakers. First of all, we have to make up for the learning loss in the last year. The learning loss, well, on the one hand, I hear many signs of like students could keep up, they did well. Some have shown even better results than on-campus education. And on the other hand, there were a lot of universities that gave students the benefit of the doubt because, well, for them it was also difficult to measure the learning outcomes, the results of the students. And that also resulted in more students going from secondary school to university. So even more students passed their secondary school and entered university because of the getting the benefit of the doubt. Secondly, a challenge for policymakers is how now to prevent that we have to improvise from over and over again. How can we professionalize digital education and come up with alternative methods of delivering teaching and learning? Yeah, next slide, please. There is a call for professionalizing the education, meaning educating the educators in digital didactics. What does that mean? It means that you have to think about building on expertise and experience that is already there. There is already a lot of expertise and experience in online education, especially with the open universities who have done a lot of research for decades in this field and have expertise and experience. We have to think about methodologically designed education, well-considered digital didactics, which are research-based, and create interaction, debate, and dialogue in online modes of teaching to be done synchronously, but also asynchronously. We have to organize activating education with engaging students by using knowledge video clips, serious gaming, student peer meetings, and so on. extend and enrich the programs by virtual mobility, which is not up till now explored very much, and consider safe software use, which is of course also to be addressed. Most and for all, we do not keep copying on what is happening on campus, but use new modes of teaching and learning, and enhance the education by doing so. Next slide, please. What is then needed? We need to share the expertise that is already there. There's a wealth of research and good practices in online education. We need really to face the challenges of digitalization. There are many reasons why we didn't so before, because there were privacy issues and software issues, and also the lack of expertise of engaging students in online. But really now we have to face the challenges of digitalization and make that shift, that transition, and start also the discussion within your institution that this is a new mindset, and also with companies that often deliver the supporting systems of what is now needed as software support in direct relation to the new pedagogies needed in offering online education. Next slide, please. The expertise that is needed is supporting three formats, three trends in practices observed during the crisis, but also for future universities that are offering the full formats of online education. One is synchronous hybrid learning, that is based on settings where we have in combination of both on-site students and students that are online. The format of blended learning, based on course design with a deliberate combination of online and offline learning, also many asynchronous offerings, and the full online and distance learning, based on the course design with continuous physical separation between the teacher and the learner. Next slide, please. And in addition, we think it's important, next to these three formats of a combination of online education, is that we universities really consider the use of virtual mobility. We already saw last year that completely the mobility programs were stopped, and that some continuation or alternatives were sought in virtual mobility, but also there's a lack of expertise on how to do so. And we as within EADTU, within our membership, we represent a lot of expertise on virtual mobility, and I've also dedicated a website and did research on that, so we can support universities very much on organizing this. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, this is a bit more on the virtual mobility part. That there is this need from a study from the Greenberg group. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so what does that mean now for every institution? Now, after the Corona crisis, is that every institution, educational institution, needs to reconsider its own educational model, include professional digital education, and most urgently, in combination with that, educate your educators in the use of digital didactics. And that also means that educators have to face a kind of a shift of becoming more of a even more from provider to developer. It has to do with also with the design of your programs in an online setting, and evaluate and continuously innovate your education to its optimum, and learn also from other universities. So it's best to operate in combination with other, preferably also more experienced universities on how to organize this. I just want to make the remark that going online is triggered by the Corona crisis, and is of course a strong alternative, but online education or combinations with online education, and first of all, is enhancing your education. It's not only because there is a pandemic that we need to go to online education, it's also enhancing the education in general. So that's therefore also more a trigger to have a sustained model of shifting to professional digital education. Next slide, please. Within EADTU, we have set up several activities to support universities in this sense. First of all, we do that within our membership, but last year we felt the urge to represent the expertise of online education to a wider audience, a European-wide, and therefore we have set up, under our Empower initiative of empowering universities in online education, a dedicated page on joining online teaching now on the Corona Crisis Support. Next slide, please. In which we collected initiatives taken by many representative universities and umbrella organizations in higher education, and we shared responses to the COVID crisis on this website. You can still find this on EADTU Empowering Universities website. Next slide, please. Then also we have launched a MOOC last year, which can be very helpful for universities to take this MOOC, and because it contains a lot of information about how to make blended education work. It's about the EMBED project, the European Maturity Model for Blended Education, supporting universities in integrating blended education into their educational system. Next slide, please. And a long-standing and a really established quality framework that we have developed for organizing blended and online education is called e-Excellence. With e-Excellence, we offer support to universities in doing a self-assessment on their online teaching performance and giving them input to develop a roadmap on improving their online teaching performance. So this is a strong reference model that is open source available that can support your university. It doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of organizing online education or high level performer of online education. This model, a benchmarking model, supports you at every stage of further developing your online education performance. Next slide, please. Then coming to a new step in this, an important step for EADTU, is that we responded to a call by the European Commission, which is shown in the next slide. It's yeah, next slide, please. You see the call here that was coming out last year, September, October, in which the Commission also felt the need for universities to take the next step in transition to digital education. And there was a call for partnerships for digital education readiness. So EADTU applied with some of their members to this call and came with a project proposal which has been approved, called Digital Pro, and it is about enhancing online distance and blended learning. Next slide. And so it brings together groups of experts from universities who are well known for research and innovation in digital education and represent a lot of good practices in that sense. And the list of members, the list of experts is in the next slide. Here you see that EADTU is coordinator of that project. And then we have KU Leuven representing synchronous hybrid education. We have TU Delft representing expertise in blended education. And then we have several like DCU in Ireland on student readiness, and Fiat representing the French universities, and then we have several open universities representing the expertise on dedicated online and distance education. Yeah, next slide. So our aim is of the project is to professionally develop digital teaching and learning, design, develop, implement continuing professional development courses in that respect. So we are building in Digital Pro 3 courses on synchronous hybrid education, blended education, and online and distance education. So these are 3 courses under one program. And in developing these programs, we also work together in research teams and bringing the latest research together to be represented in these courses. In the end, it is about accelerating the digital transformation of education systems across Europe. Next slide. So the focus of the courses in synchronous hybrid is 4 areas. Synchronous hybrid learning, I explained it already before in a slide before. The blended learning, the online distance learning, student readiness, and overall also the institutional policies and strategies in that sense. That is also very important for the introduction of the 3 formats in your institution. Next slide. Here are some pictures about the KU Leuven. They have set up this synchronous hybrid mode of teaching, where you see the combination of students on campus and students being present online. And in this course that is going to start in beginning of next year, and the launch is already on the 18th of November. I will give you details on that. You can learn how to operate with the combination of students on site and students online. Next slide. Here just an indication of how this course will focus on the on-campus part, the remote part, in a synchronous setting and in an asynchronous setting. Next slide. And then the second course is about blended education, completely building on EMBED, European Maturity Model for Blended Education. That course will, in 7 sessions, support your staff and management in setting up a roadmap of further introducing blended education towards full integration into your institutional system. Next slide. And then the course on online and distance education, which is provided by our open universities. It's just the model that they will fully address. But more on that is to be explained in our launch of this Digital Pro program, representing the 3 courses of synchronous hybrid, blended, and online education. Next slide, please. Here you see, this is the call. We will share that also with our General Assembly members of EADTU. So Lucy will have will certainly receive this call and can share that with you. This is an Eventbrite registration page where you can sign up for the launch meeting on the 18th, where we introduce the courses on digitalization of education, and then the actual training, the educational program starts in March 2022. So still sufficient time to mobilize your staff to be part of this course on digital education. Thanks. I think next slide is the last slide. Yes, that's it. Thank you very much, and hope also that you will join our course program.
Thank you very much, Dort, for your presentation. And I would like to ask anybody if there are some questions or suggestions about the discussed topic.
Hello, my name is Iwan from Center for Education Studies. Thank you, George, for a very interesting presentation. And I would like to ask you, what is, from your position, let's say, the biggest game changer after COVID? What will you think will be the biggest change? What we can expect in coming 2-3 years, and maybe also what we can expect, even that COVID will be not here, but what I think will be the more important, like key features in higher education regarding using technology in education. I think it will be artificial intelligence, it will be changing of the spaces, or what anything else do you think?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, there is of course the movement for transition to digital education will be twofold. One, you want to have quick fixes by going in combination with companies and buying interesting software and so on. But I think that's kind of a pitfall. I think first there needs to be a kind of a mindset change within the institution, that there is a change, that there is no choice. We have to go into digital education, and it's up to the institutional management to make sure that this finds a way of introduction in the institution and getting all staff involved in a program of from a mindset change to actual implementing digital education. So the introduction is very important in that sense. It is all about change management also. It should be institution-wide. And then you get a combination of what expertise is needed, identify where you can get this expertise, and what is your vision of your institution in the coming 3 to 5 years, and how to introduce that, how to bring that expertise to your staff and educate your educators to make optimum use of this of the expertise that is brought into your institution. Of course, topics like artificial intelligence we also address. It is something that is taken up in the institutional strategy, but maybe at the first point not the most important one. But you have to consider all at this moment, because this is a momentum that if you leave something behind, yeah, it's more difficult to take it up later on. So I think it needs to be certainly coordinated actions. For which many people in your staff probably will say, this doesn't work. We tried this will not work. There are a lot of people who have hundreds of reasons why it doesn't work. You really have to work with the ambassadors who believe in that it will work, because you have to overcome several challenges. If somebody say e-assessment doesn't work, yeah, there are some challenges indeed, and we have also a dedicated task force on e-assessment within EADTU, and we come with guidelines. But you really have to work with the game changers in your institution, and that is part of the change management. Get people motivated and strongly believe in this, because there is no way back. They have to believe that this is the next step. Also to keep up the competition with other universities and other providers, especially also with commercial providers. So it's quite a challenge, but it has to be taken up at institutional level, but not only top down. It has to be a work combination, a setting of top down and bottom up to take this up.
Yeah, I agree. So, and I'm happy that you also mentioned the assessment group, where we work together. It's nice. Maybe one question is, what do you think about micro-credentials? Can they maybe speed up the using technology in education, or how do you see the situation from your perspective in Europe? How do institutions see micro-credentials, higher education institutions?
Yeah, micro-credentials is a big topic in itself. Next to this, we are also very active in that field. The micro-credentials in combination with this is that they often, we have to consider the micro-credentials often to be offered flexible and online, because the target group are often continuing education, students who are not always on campus and therefore need micro-credentials to be offered online. It could be, let's say, a playground to work with an experiment, maybe with new modes of teaching also, when you don't feel comfortable in changing the whole program, yet the whole educational offerings of your institution. I could think that they could play a role in that you start with some offerings of micro-credentials and online, and experiment with the different ways of offering online education by different offers in micro-credentials. But they do not, well, they are not just like an educational offer like other offerings in your institution, but it can, yeah, offer a kind of a playground, I would guess. Otherwise, micro-credentials are a very different topic from transition of the universities. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have also one question. The strong topic in the Czech Republic is now hybrid learning. Could you recommend some publication or something who took experiences in this area?
Yeah, I think maybe Piet has some references on hybrid education. I know that the department from KU Leuven, who is supporting, bringing in the expertise in our digital program, they have done a lot of research on synchronous hybrid education. They have fully implemented it in their campus. So if you want to see how it works in practice, I recommend a visit to the KU Leuven on that department. Like I showed the pictures to you on that. And I can only at this moment recommend taking part in the course on hybrid education that is going to be launched then on the 18th of November with the first introduction of that topic. And maybe Piet, do you have a reference on the hybrid education already?
We have some references, and we are waiting now for a research report, which will be ready soon. I think next month or so, from the side of KU Leuven, and preparing actually the course which we organize in spring. So our main point of reference is the research and innovation group at KU Leuven indeed. There's another group in Berlin, where they have a kind of platform for design thinking in Potsdam. So there's another group with which we have also close contacts. But I can give you some references of the literature.
Yes, it could be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, but we ourselves also, we are on top of that. We are waiting for the updating of their research next month.
Thank you very much.
So do we have any more questions for George or anybody else?
Yeah, maybe I ask about also Piet about the hybrid learning. It's because we discussed this topic on in our conference disco about education. We have the panel discussion. Also, there was a discussion where there were questions about hybrid learning, and there was a little skeptical view from our colleague from the US. And Helen Marshall said that teachers are so tired that they don't like any hybrid learning, because it's really time consuming and also challenging on energy, etc. But maybe do you think that you need this like this kind of environment, this kind of spaces for hybrid learning that can help a lot, or if you don't have this kind of environment, that could be let's say some kind of big obstacle for hybrid learning?
No. Yes. So there are three main trends in Europe now: hybrid learning, blended learning, and online distance. And we see that, that traditional universities, when they, in their transition to digital learning, often use hybrid learning techniques. So they have all now cameras and screens in their lecture halls, and they organize a kind of hybrid learning, and so it is a trend, and now a lot of experimentation and design and also design exercises are made with regard to hybrid learning, in particular with regard to the interaction with students, and organizing small groups synchronously as well within that context. And that's precisely the research which is done at KU Leuven at this moment. So it's going a little bit deeper. But I am aware of this criticism, and also, hybrid learning is per definition synchronous. Hybrid learning is per definition synchronous, and so less flexible than blended learning, where you have a mix between synchronous and asynchronous, with the flipped classroom and so on. But as a matter of fact, more universities are inclined now to go directly to hybrid learning and less to blended. Perhaps blended is just more demanding, because there you have an important element of distance education, online education, asynchronous, and that requires a lot of design capacity and design competences from teaching staff, even more than perhaps at first glance than hybrid learning. So perhaps does it make very much sense to say I am in favor of one or the other? In fact, when we look to the developments in Europe, then we see that a lot of universities are going into synchronous hybrid learning, and others in blended learning, and sometimes they are obliged to go into online distance learning when there is a complete lockdown, for example. In all these trends, a lot of experimentation has been done during Corona, and probably this experimentation will now continue. It will not perhaps discontinue in most universities. So the main challenge now is to professionalize the professional development of teaching staff, to design courses in synchronous, hybrid, blended, or online distance. After all, it's a matter of design. How do you design your course, and how you design teaching and learning within your course, whatever format you use.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And maybe I have just one more question for George, or maybe also for Pierre. And this is the, let's say, connection with the quality assurance, National Quality Assurance Agency, how they see the effort of university to move online, how they are open, or how they are, let's say, so conservative in this way. What your experience from your partner in Europe? How do you see the situation?
Yeah, it differs per country. There are some who are very much anticipating on the changes in the universities and the innovations, and look for ways on how to include it in their quality assessment. And in other countries, they are quite reluctant and very conservative. I think the QA agencies have to adapt to the new situation as well, and have to go in line with the new developments in universities, and even maybe stimulate universities to innovate. I think innovative power of universities is actually a quality indicator, I think. So we have with the quality agencies, some directly, but some mostly with the overarching organization ENQA. We have contacts in supporting them in being in dialogue with them on what the next steps would be for the quality agencies, in line with the next steps for the universities. And there was a working group on quality and e-learning. I think 3 years ago, they came with a report from ENQA to support their ENQA members, the quality agencies, in adopting measures, anticipating on the changes in universities and online education. And one of the main messages is that we do not need new indicators, new criteria, a separate system for online education. We should include that in the current system, and maybe stretch some of the criteria, thinking about online modes as well. So simply, if you're looking as a quality agency for mobility measures, by mobility opportunities offered by the university, look then also for virtual mobility offers instead. Not just tick boxes like so many students physically traveled, but be more in dialogue with universities. If that is not the case, how did you solve that in an online mode? In the reviews from quality agencies at universities, it's becoming more important to include an expert on an online education and e-learning in the review team to really assess a university on its true quality and being an innovator as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But we keep in touch with the QA agencies on this and try to extend also the number of QA agencies who have an open mind on this, because some are really not serving the efforts universities are doing and actually innovating their education, which is of course, the main part of quality of education. So it should be addressed, and therefore we keep this continued dialogue with ENQA and their QA agencies. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. One more time to George and Pete as well. So if there is any more questions, we can skip to the next presentation of Iwan Wopereis from Open Universiteit. So if you want to start, I think it's possible.
I have to unmute. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to tell you more about active academic education at the Open University of the Netherlands. My name is Iwan Wopereis. I work at the Expertise Center for Education. And I'm an educational technologist, but I also do some research on several topics. And among these topics are information literacy and other things. Today I will discuss the Open University and its education, also some words on innovation and research, and it's mainly focusing on online education, online distance education. And of course, you have also the opportunity to ask me some questions. First, let me also say something about the Open University. It's continuously changing, so continuously in transformation. Actually, at the moment, we are heading towards a new digital learning and working environment, for instance. And so we are continuously improving and also innovating and hoping that other institutions can learn from what we do, and that's also a mission of the Open University, to help other institutions in the Netherlands to innovate with regard to ICT use in education. And I will tell you more about that too. So first, a brief introduction. I also already introduced myself. So I'm a researcher, but also educational technologist on several aspects related to technology, enhanced learning, and ICT and innovation in higher education. I work at the Open University, and this is the Netherlands and Belgium. We have several places where students can do their exams, but of course our students, they learn everywhere in the Netherlands and abroad. But in these study centers, they can also consult teachers if they want to. But as I also already said, most consultations are online, and I will tell you more about new developments on that. So I work actually in Heerlen, so in the south of the Netherlands we are based. Is our campus there, and these are what we call study centers. Some facts and figures about our students. I will not tell very much, but it's probably interesting to know that we have quite some students, about 20,000, and they are quite satisfied. So in our inquiries regarding student satisfaction, they score very high. They are very satisfied with our programs and how we offer these programs, and also the guidance within programs. So that's what we are very proud of course, but it's nice to know. Our students are probably different than most students at higher education institutes. Most of our students, they have already a job. They want to continue their professional development, and they want to study a master program in order to proceed in their careers. So most of our students are in the in this category, 26 to 35 years. And so that's also important to know. And that for these students, very flexible programs are, a necessity in order to have success in further development. We have several faculties, so psychology, education sciences, and so on. So not all, we do not cover, for instance, medicine or these kinds of studies, but these are also our faculties. And of course, we have also staff, and about 716 people work at the Open University, and most are based in Heerlen at campus. Others work scattered around in our country and Belgium. Okay, if you focus at our profiles, or not non-traditional, as I can say, but we are public, so we are open for anyone over the age of 18 years. Everyone can study at the Open University on an academic level. It's distance learning, and I will discuss this distance learning more in detail later on. We have bachelor's and master programs, and of course, we are a university. We do research on several within several disciplines, and also multidisciplinary research. And one of these disciplinary research topics aim at distance education at our university. So how to innovate our own education. So we also want to offer evidence-informed and evidence-based didactics, for instance. So we focus on innovation and provide open higher education. So that's our position in the educational system. And well, it's also a mission to innovate, and I will dig more deeper in that later on. So focusing on research and education, and our educational model is what we call activating academic distance learning. This is online, but also a bit blended, because some of our practica, for instance, are on site within the study centers, but it's a very small portion. So while we are predominantly online, we offer structured programs, but they are also flexible. And if you compare it to traditional universities, we are probably very, very flexible. But if you compare it to our programs in the past, we are less flexible and more structured. And I will present more information on the why we need to have also more structured programs in order to increase study success. And that's the last point. So study success is very important. So study efficiency, efficacy is important within our institute. So this innovation, well, yeah, last year we had as higher education system to go online, and we were also asked to help other institutes to provide information for teachers how to go online, how to also go very fast online. This is a very interesting article that is emergency remote teaching is much different than a traditional online distance learning curriculum. And so this is an advice. Read this article, it's very interesting. Because it offers a lot of challenges, and you're already familiar with this, but this is something we already knew before COVID entered our society. Well, online education is much more than just providing content. And what we saw in these emergency remote programs is what a lot of content was put online, and there were a lot of synchronous meetings, webinar kind of education. But it's more. You have to do all the guidance and these kind of things online, and and the counseling and study counseling. And we as an Open University already, well, we designed these kind of things in our programs. It was built in. Asynchronous, but also synchronous, but mostly asynchronous within our study materials. So that means that creating good online education is not easy. It's quite a job, and it was also already said by George in a previous lecture, or what he just said. Providing good online education costs time and money. So you have to invest in people, instructional designers within your institution who help the tutors, the instructors, and the teachers to create good and develop good education. And what also is important in online education, students are much more likely to be distant. So you have to focus on this. The idea that the students are distant, they need guidance. You have to monitor these students much more than if you see them on a regular basis, face to face. So it is flexible. That is the last point, but flexibility can result in high dropout, and that's why we adapted our educational model and created a system that is less flexible, but still flexible, but offers a lot of opportunity to successfully finalize the study. So what we did, for instance, for teachers in the Netherlands in this COVID period is create all kinds of modules, micro modules on specific topics, so they could learn more in a very short period of time on online education. So what we call micro modules on specific topics like assessment, peer assessment, or what exactly, how do you activate students within online education. These are topics which are also in these new courses in the Digital Pro project. So we enter our experience on this in this project. And we also publish about these initiatives we do. We also were asked to help the teachers in higher education. So for instance, we created a website with all kinds of information. Unfortunately, this is in Dutch, but on how to organize guidance within online education and so on. And we offered webinars to present all the information to teachers. We did this in a 2-week period, so in March last year, and all the information we also put online for the teachers too. And based on this, we also created new modules later on for the second wave in the COVID of the second lockdown period. What we also do, we focus on this continuously professionalization of teachers, instructors. So we also participate in a very large initiative in the Netherlands, which is called the Acceleration Plan, Educational Innovation and ICT. And there we work together with other institutes in higher education on educational innovation and ICT. So that's also a very important initiative. And here we also created all kinds of publications on how, for instance, to design good professionalization programs for innovative ICT use. And of course, we participate in the European project Digital Pro. And so a very interesting and good project, I think, for which is focusing more on Europe and a more broader context than just the Netherlands. So something more about education at the Open University. This is a kind of a model which presents you some variables who influence study success and which we can influence. So we can, for instance, influence the intake of students. We can do interventions on that. We can also focus more on the social academic integration, which according to our evaluations is very important for study success, but also the organization of your education and of course the didactical approach. So this is a very general model based on our evaluation of our students, but I think it's very familiar for you and recognizable. But this was the basis for our new model. And this new model, this table presents some information on the model, says something about what we did. So we focused in our new educational model, which is called active academic distance education, more on counseling of students. Students had to plan their study more. So we help them how to plan their study, because they have to do a lot of themselves. So to plan according, you don't see the students on a very regular basis. You see them occasionally, but not on a very regular basis. And the information on how to study is also a very important thing. So we present also information on that. The organization of our curricula changed. So we introduced the academic year. This was previously, there were no academic years. Students could enter a program at any time within a year. But at the moment, you can enter on several periods in time. And that has a very interesting advantage, because now you have cohorts of students and you can create, and that relates to the didactical approach, you can create all kinds of educational models like collaborative learning, which was in previous years not possible because we had individual trajectories. So, and we all know that collaborative learning can motivate students and also help to proceed within a program. So the academic year, and we had also now fixed course schedules of, and that is related to the academic year. And what is very important, active monitoring. So in online education, it's very important to monitor your students, to be visible as a teacher, for instance. For regular universities, this is a normal, this is very normal, but for open universities, open distance universities, this is quite new. And so we focused on that, how to be visible as a teacher, how to monitor actively your student population. Our didactical approach focused on online learning and of course, blended learning. There are still some practica, for instance, on interviewing techniques, and these kind of things which are on site, although we also experimented with online possibilities last year, of course, due to the COVID. We focus on active learning, active teaching techniques, for instance, in the virtual classroom, how to engage your students in this active learning. So we have a lot of information on that too. And students had to do more assignment and feedback. So that means more for the teachers, of course. They have also to focus on how to organize that, but assignments, so learning tasks based on authentic tasks are more important than just focusing on teaching knowledge, and there's also more a focus on skill learning. The last aspect, social integration, is an important thing. Engagement is a very important topic at the moment. So we create all kinds of learning tasks, learning environments where students can be part of a community. We are focusing on community building. And this is also quite new for open and distance universities. So our new digital learning and work environment focuses on these kind of things. I have here are some issues which are now at the moment very important topics. So teacher-student contact is still online. We have, of course, all kinds of instruments for this contact, but it is a kind of, if you see the third bullet, it's a mix of self-study, virtual, and face-to-face meetings. So there are still face-to-face meetings, but all the contact between teacher and student is still online. Activating interactive learning formats. We are experimenting with a lot of new ways of active learning, teaching techniques. And and what is important here, so the balance between flexibility and structure. This is what we are now aiming at, which we want to know more about, which our research is also aiming at. So how to be flexible, but have high student return on investments, that they will not drop out, and etc. So there's a balance needed between flexibility and structure. Also, that differs between those who are in their first year and those who are much further in their studies. So you can also have a very flexible curriculum within this balance. So our research focuses on several of these things I just mentioned. So our new model, so that's the second bullet, disciplinary research on distance learning. This is done within the educational science department. Of course, we have our disciplinary research, psychology research, law, in the faculty of law and the faculty of management sciences. But a very large portion of our research is done in the educational science department, and we have now multidisciplinary research programs. And what is also a new phenomenon now, we have now the innovation lab, where we combine innovation and research on topics related to distance learning. And of course, we participate in several European projects, research projects, but also innovation projects. And Digital Pro is one of these. If you want to know more about what we do at the Open University, I've put here some references, and also which I refer to in my talk. And if you have any questions regarding our educational model and how we organize our new education, you can ask me some questions, of course. And I hope that I'm still within time. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Exactly in time. I think we still have some more time for questions.
I can stop the sharing.
So I have one question, if I can. Thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. And I would like to ask if your student changed this year, because you worked online before the pandemic, and maybe you must also change a little bit your state of the art in this in unusual times. So yeah. What is the difference for Open University this year?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this interesting question, because also at the Open University, something changed, although the main curricula within departments did not change. The main change was related to the examination. So our students for final exams go to study centers in the Netherlands, and we had to transform these exams and put them online. So we did also online, and the issue of online proctoring was also an issue at our university, of course, like it was with others. But our problems were not that big as others, because we have a different population, and we were already online. And our work, well, what differed was there were a lot of meetings. For instance, start meetings of students where several, sometimes 200 or 300 students come together and have their first meeting with fellow students. These kind of meetings were organized online. But we had already a lot of experience with online, also with large live events. So that was not a big problem, but we had to, well, we had to learn several teachers. We had to learn to do these kind of things online too, especially the big events.
And thank you very much. And maybe you could see some changes in your target group, so that maybe your potential students are changing a little bit.
I'm not sure whether the students changed. What we see was a very large increase in new students. So also during the COVID period, not immediately, of course, but after half a year, we saw that the number of students increased, and I think about more than 10%. So that's quite an increase, and of course this also then you have this problem that we have not enough teachers to do the work, and we have so the workload increased also a lot for a lot of students in specific areas, for instance, psychology and management sciences. So this also created new problems.
Yes, thank you. People know now that distance education exists and it's possible to study online. So
yeah, that is true. But I think in the Netherlands, a lot of, well, if you want to proceed your career, then you probably know about the existence of an open university. So for students of the age of 18 till 22, or where regular universities focus at, we see an increase in this group too, but it's not our main target group.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Do we have more questions for Iwan?
Pete.
It's more a side remark, I would say, a side comment. So Iwan said that the target group, the main target group, is plus 18. And that's right. So it's people, lifelong learners, so to say, lifelong learners for a bachelor and master, but also for short programs, the focus programs, as you call them, increasingly perhaps, and certainly in the near future with the micro-credentials.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of countries in Europe, of course, where there is no open university. And there we see that in continuing education, universities start with online teaching and learning with distance education, because that has to be flexible in order to reach out to lifelong learners, to adult students. And so traditional universities, when they apply distance education as the Open Universiteit does, and we learned about the main principles, they are doing so first perhaps in continuing education and not so much in bachelor and master programs. They open their bachelor and master programs in evening classes and so on, but they don't open bachelor and master programs through distance education. But in continuing education, we see increasingly a trend towards distance education, online education, or blended education with a large part of distance education. And certainly when now the movement of micro-credentials will start, by the end of this year, there will be a recommendation to the Council of Ministers at the European level. And so in every country, micro-credentials and continuing education will be discussed. And these will be mainly online distance. And so it's very important to be aware of this, and also to professionalize teaching staff involved in micro-credential programs in the near future. And therefore, this contribution of Iwan made a lot of sense. And yeah, this is quite a new development. And where this happens, we see also that the innovation taking place in these shorter programs and these micro-credential programs has an effect immediately on the bachelor and master programs, because there the same professors, the same teaching staff is introducing active learning, e-learning, a kind of blended learning sometimes, with key principles of active learning, which is a completely different pedagogical setting compared with just giving like. So that was my side.
No, yeah, totally right on this. This topic of micro-credentials is now very important. We also see it in the Dutch acceleration plan, educational innovation with ICT. I think 32 institutes of higher education are now focusing on this topic and how to organize that. So yeah, it's an important topic, micro-credentials.
So if there's no more questions, I would like to thank you again for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I will pass the word to Alessandro Caforio from International Telematic University, Uninettuno. So if you are ready.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Thomas. Good morning to all of you. I'm just sharing the screen and starting this presentation. I would like to share with you the model of our university in order to give you a practical example of the implementation of an online university. You will see that some things are completely shared among the principles that already George presented and Iwan too in their OUNL, and something is different probably. But anyway, Uninettuno started before existing, in the sense that it is a sort of creator started by Nettuno Consortium. Nettuno Consortium started in Italy in 1992, an idea of Professor Maria Matagarito, who is currently director of Uninettuno. But Nettuno Consortium was a consortium, and its members were traditional universities. And the mission of the consortium was to provide distance learning services to higher education institutions in Italy. It started with just 3 universities, Milan Polytechnic, Turin Polytechnic, and Federico II University in Naples. And it arrived to 41 universities in the consortium, out of 65 traditional public universities. So a large majority of the Italian higher education institutions were part of the consortium and used the distance learning services provided by the consortium itself. Starting in 1992, it means that we did not have the web as we now know it. So the first model of the consortium from an organizational and pedagogical point of view was a blended learning model, in which through satellite TV channels and videocassette distributions, students enrolled in the universities, choosing to attend their degree programs through the Nettuno Consortium, were provided with video lectures, while other activities and also textbooks and interactive learning happened in the campuses. So seminars or assignments and project works were done in presence, while video lectures and textbooks were at a distance. Then with the spreading of the web available as a technology, a popular technology, Nettuno Consortium started moving its didactic provision also on the web. At the end of the 90s, we already had 5,000 of video lections in streaming online with multiple bit rate, and also the interaction through forum and chat and tentative video conferences were experimented on the web. And this has made us pretty pioneers, if you consider that YouTube started just in 2005, and we already were advanced in online video streaming. Another parent of Uninettuno University is for sure EADTU project, a project funded by the European Commission, coordinated by Nettuno Consortium, creating a sort of Euro-Mediterranean higher education space, online higher education space, in which Uninettuno coordinated 31 universities from north and south shore of the Mediterranean, creating common curricula in ICT and mechanical engineering, and also professional training programs in 4 languages, Italian, English, French, Arabic, and creating also what we call technological poles and production centers, while technological poles are like the learning centers mentioned before. So places, physical places in the universities, in our case, in the partner universities, in which students could access to the technological equipment and broadband connection needed to attend the courses. Then the regulation changed in Italy in 2003 and 2004 with a new law allowing the accreditation of the so-called, and we were accredited. Now, sorry, can you hear me? Now Uninettuno have 25,000 students coming from 167 different countries, also because we offer programs not just in Italian, but also in English, French, Arabic, and Greek, and also some programs are offered in other specific languages. And we have a network of technological poles. With this new regulation, we start becoming a full university, so providing titles, research, and what we call in Italy third mission. From the point of view of the models, we think at an organizational level, institutional level, we should focus on organizational models, pedagogical, didactic model, and technological models. And all of these 3 are strongly interconnected. And from the technological point of view, being really synthetic about this, Professor Garrido and our research team developed a model that then was translated in technology, with 5 main components that are common among all the courses provided by all the degree programs. So each of the courses have these 5 elements: support and orientation materials. Then we have the so-called symbolic reconstructive learning, represented mainly by the video lectures and all the materials hypertextually connected to them. The learning by doing, so the assignments, the virtual labs, activities that allow students to put in practice the theoretical knowledge. The collaborative learning, so you will see interactive classes, forum discussion, and also 3D environments. And finally, evaluation and learning analytics implemented in the system. So in our model, support and orientation tools present to students different ways of understanding and orientating among the new course they are going to attend. So start ranging from the syllabus to the didactic plan that are linear contents to the concept maps that represent provide a graphical representation, a browsable hypertextual graphical representation of a course composition in order to let students with different cognitive styles to anticipate what will happen in the course when they will start studying. Then the key didactic material for Uninettuno are the video lessons. Probably because we started with videos when we were Nettuno Consortium. Video lectures are designed according to a model that was developed by Professor Garrido again. And we provide them, of course, they are in streaming, on demand. They are indexed, so they are full lecture, lasting usually about 40 minutes, with an indexing that allows students to jump to the specific point in which the professor is going to speak about a specific topic, and with hypermedia links that allow the students to access to deepening materials of different categories, and also that in some point highlight one of these categories in order to let students understand that there is a material, in this case an essay, a paper, related to what the professor is saying in that specific moment of the lecture. This happens in a totally on-demand way. So this is self-paced learning. These contents are available always to students. They can study in the night, in the summer, on the Christmas holidays, and the system will track them when they are studying online. But this is not enough in our model to be admitted to the exam. The didactic experience, let's say, is completed by two other kind of didactic activities. First one, of course, this self-paced learning provide the maximum level of flexibility to students because they can access whenever they want. There is this cognitive model of giving students control of what happens, so they can navigate, jump. There are no limits or a strict sequencing of what happened. I can watch lesson number 1 and then jump to 10 without the system preventing me to do this. And of course, there is a lower level of interactivity because these are activities, individual activities. Second, the third environment, the second didactic learning environment is represented by what we call the virtual lab, providing students the possibility to apply what they learn through the didactic contents. In this case, we have several kind of materials, depending also on the kind of course. For engineering, we will have something, and for Latin paleography, something different. We categorize the materials in assignments that the student can deliver to the platform and the professor will grade and comment. Interactive exercises that are self-grading, providing a real-time feedback to students, and virtual labs that are more interactive and complex material that we develop for specific courses. In this case, there is just a screenshot about a virtual lab of Latin language. Learning by doing activities decrease the flexibility because you have to follow some rule, but has a higher level of interactivity. The other environment is about the online, what we call the online tutoring. It's about collaborative learning mainly. Nowadays, it is focused on two main tools, the web fora. So the forum is activated per each course, and students are asked by the professor that are managing the course to participate to the discussion. But this discussion usually are able to raise issues or challenges that the students will face during the study. This will become the topics of conversation during the interactive classes that are live meetings, regularly organized by the professors, in which we use different models. In my course, one of the main models used is the flipped classroom. So I tell my students what to study, since they have all the materials and the lecture just online before our meeting, and then the meeting will be a discussion. Why? Because this is a moment in which the flexibility level of the model decreases dramatically. They need to stay connected at that time of that day for that course. So they do not need to attend another video lecture in which the only person speaking is the professor. Otherwise, I can just record the lecture and provide it online. What we want is to increase the interactivity level of this moment. Other professors from other courses uses, like in this screenshot, these live moments to propose exercises, to call one student to solve the exercise, discussing it with the other colleagues, with the supervision of the professor. It's like calling a student at the blackboard in a room, but doing it online. Finally, we also keep experimenting. This is our island on Second Life, in which we keep experimenting how 3D and immersive environments can apply to online learning for specific activities. As I was saying, in collaborative learning, the interactivity level is the maximum, while the flexibility decreases because mainly the most important activities are synchronous, and synchronicity means that you need to stay online at the specific time. And finally, we have our learning analytics tracking per each student, per each course, the time and the access they are doing, the completion level of the video lecture watching, the number of exercises and assignments delivered, the grading of them. And these are data that we use both for admitting the students at the final exam and also for analyzing students' behavior at a higher level in order to understand if a course needs to be updated, if we need to enforce or change something in the course provision, in order to understand also the dropout levels of the people that in a specific course are encountering difficulties. So they are used also as a sort of learning intelligence. And we are accumulating this kind of data at a very granular level since 2006. So now we have billions of records about it, and these are part also of research activities we are carrying on. This learning model that can be some way inspiring or can give some idea in how to organize distance learning provision is strictly interconnected also with the organizational model of the university. That is a key component. I will provide you some element about what Uninettuno have as an organizational model. First of all, research is a key point for keeping an online university providing a good learning experience to its students, keeping it evolving according to new technologies, but also to new needs coming from its students. In this sense, we have, of course, multidisciplinary research in the 6 faculties. We range from psychology to engineering, communication science, law, economics, and cultural heritage. But we have a dedicated area for what we call the university research. That is a research focused on the innovation and development of organizational, psychopedagogical, and technological model for higher education and continuous professional development. Most of the things you are seeing, I briefly presented in the previous slides, are the results of small or large research done. And the challenge is that in our case, we are not doing research like small pilots or just in one course. We use some courses as laboratories, but the objective is always to develop models that can be deployed at a large scale for all the university. Because having a coherent model for all the courses in the university allow us also to optimize tutor and professor training, course production, course design. Of course, this model cannot be just a series of constraints, because you have to keep and to respect also the differences among different teaching styles and different learning objectives for subjects ranging from big data analytics to, I don't know, history of psychology. But you have to create and to develop a framework flexible enough to be useful for all the professors and the students for different subjects, but also homogeneous enough to be adopted by an entire organization. And this can be done by small research, but thinking from the first stage of the research to the large-scale development. This happened, for example, evolving the interactive classes system. We already had 10 years ago what we called virtual classroom. Virtual classroom were performed on live streaming, but in our production center. We have 3 production studios because we keep producing video lectures, of course. But this became a bottleneck because we have hundreds of courses running and hundreds of professors needing to use the production centers for their live. This virtual classroom furthermore, were less interactive. Students were able to see the professor live, but they were only able to interact through chat, through text chat. So we decided to move on a more interactive system, and we start experimenting with different web conferencing system 8 years ago. And then we did an experimentation with Microsoft Skype for Business that now do not exist anymore. And we integrated it in our platform in order to provide this interactive experience and collaborative experience to our students and to give new powerful instruments to our tutors. Then technology changed and evolved again, and we moved to a full integration of Microsoft Teams. But these changes are done with small scale research, experimentation, drafting of pedagogical model, training of the tutors, and then finally deployment also to all the students. Again, from the organizational model point of view, we have a network of technological poles, both in Italy, in which we have several sites that act both as an administrative point for local students and also as an exam site, because before COVID and now, the regulation in Italy is that exam got to be in presence, not online. During COVID-19, this pandemic and lockdown, this regulation changed for both online and traditional universities. But now we are hopefully coming back to the original model. So in order to be attractive for students, we cannot ask them to come to Rome each time they want to take an exam. And so we created this network of technological poles, allowing students to have a physical reference closer to them. This applies also for students coming from country outside Italy. And in some cases, we have full technological poles inside partnered universities. In other cases, for students coming from countries in which we do not have technological poles, we have agreements with their embassies where they can take the exam online with the supervision of the public servant in the Italian embassy in their country. Another characteristic of our organizational model is the role of the professor. We have at least two categories of professor. One is what we call the video professor. That usually, not always, but usually, we recruit and hire from other universities. As we did with the consortium, with Uninettuno consortium, in which we had professors coming from 41 different universities in Italy. And so we had the opportunity to pick the best one from the scientific and didactic point of view. We are trying to do this always today, hiring professors that have a strong scientific curriculum on that very specific topic, or that can provide a nice didactic experience to students for recording the video lectures. So video lectures for us are comparable to what the textbook or handbook can be in a course. Probably the course that is held by a professor who is using a sort of textbook not written by himself. In our case, the video lectures are the handbook, and the professor, Unинettuno professor, is the one that is managing the course delivery phase. And the course delivery phase, is another key characteristic of our model. In a traditional university, I don't know, mathematics will start in November and in February, and then you can take the exam in March or May or September. But if you didn't attend the course, you need to wait November 22. In our model, all the courses from all the programs run 3 times a year. So all the courses start in September, then start again in January, then start again in April. Then at the end of the courses, we have 2 exam sessions, and with 1 extraordinary session in October. This gives students a higher level of flexibility in planning their study. And this, of course, is really appreciated by working students, for example, that can say, okay, now it's a pretty busy period in my work, but I can take the courses anyway in January because they are starting again. This is also an opportunity for the university because in this way we can keep the enrollment running through all the months. While traditional universities have closed enrollment period ranging from September to December, students in Uninettuno can enroll in April and they will soon start attending their first course and being able to take their first exam in July or September. These are the main characteristics I wanted to share with you. Of course, there are a lot of decisions to be taken when moving online, both if you're choosing to provide blended programs or full online programs. And all the combination of didactic, let's say, models that I provided you is just one of the possible blends. And the way in which those didactic models are implemented is, of course, one of the possible. One of the recommendations is to base it on research, to use the chances offered by technologies nowadays in order to keep the models evolving in a data-driven way, and also focus on research because the new emerging technologies like immersive technologies or AI in education will offer both possibilities, but also will be needed to be managed carefully in order to not create redlining, exclusion, or sort of biases that could prevent some categories of students to experience a good learning process in their university experience. That's mainly all from my side. These are a couple of references from our rector about the model of the video lessons we are using and the entire Uninettuno model. And I'm stopped the sharing now. If you have any questions, please.
You already discussed differences in the approaches of different professors, or is there also, or can you describe some differences between students of, for example, engineering faculty or cultural heritage faculty? Is there any differences between those students?
Student population is something that changed all over the years, also before COVID. Nettuno Consortium, so 20 years ago, was a choice mainly for working students, so 35, 40 years old, and disabled students, so the ones that cannot move physically to the campus in order to attend the courses. This already changed when we started Unittuno University, but in the last 5-6 years, the share of students ranging from 18 to 28 years old, let's say, increased dramatically. COVID-19 gave another boost to the enrollment from all students categories. But there are differences among the different faculties. For example, cultural heritage, we have a large share of older students, also over 50 or over 60, that are choosing the university as a personal achievement. While engineering and psychology faculties, that are also the ones with more students for Uninettuno, as a large share of younger students that are, in some case, are able to work even if they are 22 or 23 because they are programmers, but they want the title because they know this will be a boost for their professional career. In other cases, the choice is driven by social geographical conditions. There is a difference in Italy among the North and the South, as you probably know, and this is reflected also in the university, but not for the quality of university itself, but because of the district in which university are. So people from the South know that if I go to the North, enrolling in a North university, I will have more chance to find a job because all the context of the university is more active from this point of view. So this is this sort of diaspora from South to North. But then in the last 10 years, moving to the North, so moving to Milan, also to Rome or to other big cities in Italy, became more and more expensive. So for many students, the choice is among a university in their own region in which they will commute 50 or 100 kilometers per day, or choosing a good quality online university that will allow them also to have, I don't know, a part-time job. And that probably will provide them also some diverse opportunity in terms of career after the completion and the achievement of the title. That's why we are working a lot also with enterprises and companies now, because there is at least what we are experiencing is an increasing need for company to hire young students. So the ones that are just exiting from the university, especially in ICT, IT engineering and this kind of disciplines, because there is a strong demand and the offer is not matching the demand. And so students are seeing this value proposition, so the opportunity to have a traineeship that can lead to something else, as something valuable also from Uninettuno, that is an online university. Then you have to consider that in Italy, the online university market is different if compared to other situations. In other countries, there is one public online university, open university. That is the reference point for all the online courses. In Italy, online universities so far are not state universities, are all non-state universities. And they are 11. That is a huge number, because if you think, one can say also that one online university can be enough for a country, because they have no geographical constraints. But in Italy, we have 11. And let me be polite. The value proposition of these universities can be really different. There are some universities promoting themselves as, you need a degree, study with us. It will be nice and easy. Uninettuno tended to not propose itself in such a way, but to say, you want high quality learning? Okay, you will need to study. Probably you will not pass all the exams at the first try. But we have research, we have doctorate program, we have possibility to be involved in international projects, we have relation with enterprises also for short programs, continuous education, and other kind of programs. So at the end, we can say there are two different populations interested in achieving an online title. The ones that just want the title because in public jobs, let's say, or for public calls, it's enough that you have the title because it have a legal value. There is no difference among a degree in psychology from Uninettuno, another online university, or La Sapienza University for a public call. It's the same class, the same accreditation, the same value. But for private can do the differences and probably they can say, okay, you're coming from this university, or you're coming from Uninettuno, okay. So it's a different population with other different objectives. And so this can be a consideration too.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you much.
I have one very practical question. You presented a very strong teaching model based on research, and how difficult is to persuade your professors or tutors to change their teaching practice according to research results, because teachers in Czech Republic normally are really free in how to work with students, what activities provide, etc. So how difficult is to have a very strong one teaching model and implement it in every subject? Thank you.
I think it's a nice question. I think there are 3 points. The first one is, yes, we have as I said, a defined model, but we leave space of personalization. Okay, you need to have assignments, but we are not saying which kind of assignment or if they will be collaborative, a project work, or just answering open questions. You need to perform interactive classes. So to meet your students, to support them, to organize activities. But we provide a bouquet of models that you can apply. You want to apply flipped classroom, okay. You want to do online exercises with your class, okay. You want to propose a different thing, okay. Please comply to the fact that you will have a minimum number of interactive classes per course delivery. So there is this balance with an overall framework and freedom of choice within the framework. The second point is that, anyway, we are considerably younger than other universities. So this innovation driver also have the ability to impact on the choices of the professors, because we are 15 years old compared to other universities in Italy that have 1,000 years. We are newborn, we are just born. And so this is still acceptable, let's say. Also because of the management hierarchies, because we are not structuring faculties or departments with this strong power, because 15 years probably were not enough to consolidate this kind of powers. And the third element is that it's not so much, I experienced these difficulties, not so much in professors in Uninettuno managing the courses, but sometimes in video professors. So in the ones we recruit for recording the video lectures. Because the video lectures model, it's not just go in front of a webcam and record. We want the video lectures to follow a specific model. And this model forces professor to not improvise, to follow a sort of storyboard they have to design by themselves. But usually, no, not usually, but it happens that professor with 20 or 30 years of experience in giving lecture in front of a 300 student class, they usually go improvising. And when they are just in front of a camera with a presentation of slideshow, they prepared, supported by our course design offices, but they go and panic. So we usually reserve for the first lecture, a professor has to record 4 hours of studio. So we also, if the lecture will last 40 minutes, we know that the first lecture will be the real training activity. Because at the end of these 4 hours, they will say, okay, now I understood, I'm ready to change my slideshow and I will come back next week for recording. So probably the video lecture model is harder to be understood and accepted till they finally try to record and they realize they have to rethink the way in which they are communicating. But they need to rethink, because a thing is to give this lecture and having the feedback of the students in front of you, seeing if they are reacting, if they are sleeping, if they have question marks on the faces. Another thing is to record for a student, for an hypothetical student, that can stop you, move fast forward, jump to another content. So you have to be structured, and in the same way hypertextual, to give references to the materials the students will be able to find on the platform but that are not in your lecture. And so this shift in the way a professor is thinking to his lecture is pretty hard to understand.
Thank you very much.
Please.
If we don't have any more questions, I see Piet Hendricks maybe.
Yes, again, more a side remark. So what is shown today, especially by Alessandro, is that you can have very different formats, very many personalized formats, or teaching staff can adapt learning formats, teaching and learning formats to its own background, its subject matter, its content, his objectives with the course, but all rely on generic principles, happily enough. And so what we have to do in the continuous professional development of teaching staff is to teach these generic principles of course design for blended learning, for distance education, also for normal lectures, for synchronous learning. And so that's exactly what we will do with the digital pro courses. There we will offer the general principles, some examples of good practices, and also more specific formats which are developed by teaching staff everywhere at several universities in Europe, and yeah, which are different, which are depending from the culture of a university, but also the background, the subject matter for each course. So these generic principles are very much important, I think. For a blended learning, we have laid them down in the so-called Embed project. You'll find that in our on our website. You'll find the main principles of blended education, while the main principles for distance education, and so Iwan has showed how they were presented at the Dutch Open Universiteit for the Dutch universities, hopefully once they are subtitled or so, or translated, because these principles are very important for any format in blended education and distance education. And so we will also offer some of these principles as they are now for synchronous hybrid learning, although the concrete formats can be very different from teaching staff to teaching staff and from university to university, happily enough, because that's academic freedom as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, and probably this interest in continuous professional education will be reflected also in changing in organizational models too, both in didactic, because you need to adapt to a different population that probably will ask for more examples and testing of the practical application of the knowledge you are trying to demonstrate and to share with them. And we are noticing an increasing interest in demanding courses that are shorter than the usual provision from a university, so 3-year, 2-year, or 1-year professional master programs. This will have an impact also on the design principle of the courses. In some cases, what we did is modularize existing courses from existing curriculum, but changing the way in which they are delivered, increasing the number of interactions among students, of collaborative activities, because they have different needs, and to have a high satisfaction rate from both students, the learners, let's say, and the companies, you need to do something that is relevant and applicable also in the professional context. And this will be another challenge, not just the framework that is already challenging, so finding and adapting to micro-credential and short learning program, but also shifting again toward a new way of being higher education for continuous professional development.
Perhaps just one more remark. If you're planning to develop joint courses or joint programs, online or blended, we have developed guidelines for this, and they will be published soonly on a website of the Bloom website or the OpenU website. I can show you the references or give you the references. If you urgently need such guidelines for joint masters or joint micro-credentials, courses or programs, I can send you the PDF already. This is in the framework of a digital higher education hub made for the European Commission. And I know by experience that when organizing distance education, certainly in degree studies in traditional universities, it is useful to collaborate with other universities, because you can then form course teams and distribute the work. You can divide a course in course units or modules or smaller course units, and that makes the work more feasible. Yeah, but then you need also a joint course team. It's all described in these guidelines for the joint development of courses, which will be available soon, just for your information.
So thank you very much. I think that we must thank you to all the presentation, and I saw maybe Tomáš will say some final words.
So I would like to ask to thank not only presenters, but the speakers, but also all participants. I hope you enjoyed our little online session today, and I think we learned new stuff, and we have new inspiration for our work. And I hope to see you not only online next time, maybe. So thank you. If you don't have any more questions or remarks, so we can say goodbye.